You were raised on a script. Be good, play fair, do the right thing even when it stings. Sounds noble. But in the arena where careers, relationships, and reputations actually live, that script gets you cornered. Machiavelli understood this long before social media and corporate PR turned morality into a performance. He didn't treat morals as automatic virtues. He treated them like tools, useful when they advance outcomes, dangerous when they telegraph your next move. That's the first big shift. Goodness without strategy isn't virtue. It's vulnerability. Think about how predictability works. If you say out loud, "I never lie, I never betray, I always treat people how I want to be treated," you've just handed the room a user manual for manipulating you. Now people don't have to overpower you. They only need to stage situations that make your goodness restrain you. You become too loyal to leave, too honest to protect yourself, too kind to push back. While you clutch your principles, someone else plays chess with them. So, here's your rule of survival. Never make your values obvious. If they can't read your lines, they can't write your scene. Be fluent, not rigid. Be able to look virtuous while reserving the power to act as required. Power doesn't belong to the pure. It belongs to the unreadable. You've seen this dynamic. The honest employee gets pushed out. The loyal partner is abandoned. The generous friend becomes everyone's unpaid assistant. Morality in theory is beautiful. Morality without leverage gets you picked clean. Machiavelli would tell you it's often better to appear moral than to be moral. Why? Because appearance earns trust, while freedom of action preserves options. If you must choose between being seen as cruel or being destroyed by your own kindness, choose the rumor over the ruin. Not because cruelty is a lifestyle, but because survival outranks sentimentality when the knives come out. Most of what we're taught as virtue functions like a leash when applied blindly. Turn the other cheek. Don't judge. Forgive and forget. In the wrong hands, those phrases become shackles. They're not universal commandments. They're compliance codes. Machiavelli didn't write for peasants. He wrote for rulers. He didn't tell leaders to be kind. He told them to understand the value of looking kind. Be a fox to see the traps, and a lion to scare the wolves. Translation: notice when moral language is being used to shame or stall you, and know how to disengage from weaponized guilt. Ask a sharper question the next time someone waves ethics in your face. Are they interested in right and wrong, or in keeping you small and predictable? If the moral frame exists only to make you apologize, work for free, or lower your guard, that isn't ethics. It's extraction. Here's the darker trick you need to spot. A skilled manipulator doesn't fight your morality. They redirect it. They aim your compassion at their convenience. They use your loyalty to tie you to losing causes. They ask for your honesty when they need incriminating truth. They crave your forgiveness to stay close enough to repeat the wound. You'll feel like you're being good, when really you're supplying the raw materials for your own capture. That's what it means to be ruled by the ghost of your reputation, the good person mask that makes you easy to script. Reclaim the steering wheel by converting every value into a choice, not a reflex. Compassion offered only when it costs you nothing essential. Loyalty reserved for people who would bleed for you, not people who simply expect you to. Forgiveness granted sparingly, and only after consequences have taught what your kindness never did. Never hand virtue out for free. Make it something people earn, not something they extract. Machiavelli didn't despise morals. He ranked them. First, secure power. Your time, your mind share, your boundaries, your leverage. Then, and only then, let virtue season your rule. Without power, principles get you punished. With power, they become policy. Now let's flip the mask and learn how perception works. The people who hold sway aren't always moral. They are masterful at appearing moral. That distinction, mask versus marrow, is where influence lives. Morality worn like armor makes you predictable. Morality worn like a mask makes you untouchable. In a world ruled by optics, headlines, screenshots, sound bites, seems, beats, is, 9 times out of 10. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few will ever touch what you actually are. So play the role with craft. Appear fair, speak of integrity, praise empathy, then move with cold precision when the moment demands it. You're not embracing hypocrisy. You're practicing survival theater in a culture that judges by the feed, not the facts. The politician who smiles while slicing your freedoms. The CEO who preaches compassion while crushing a competitor. The partner who swears loyalty while keeping options open. They don't win because they're good. They win because they control the lighting on the stage. Control your face before you try to control your fate. Every pause, every "I hear you," every measured nod is a steering wheel. Use virtue as camouflage as you cross hostile ground. Ruthless people get caught because they stop pretending. They forget the game is perception. The best operators look incapable of the very moves they're executing. That's the entry price to this world. Unreadability over rigidity, optics over confessions, choice over compulsion. From here on, you will not apologize for choosing strategy over martyrdom. You'll learn to hold your values like a concealed blade, never flaunted, always available. And when someone tries to pin you to a moral wall, you won't argue in their frame. You'll change the room. Here's what happens when you stop defending yourself on moral grounds. You step outside their courtroom. Most people, when accused, "How could you do that? That's wrong. People like you are the problem," start explaining. They justify, soften, beg for understanding. And in that moment, they've already lost. Machiavelli would never play defense on morality. He'd reframe the entire debate. Don't argue whether it was right or wrong. Redefine the terms. Say, "I did what was necessary." Or, "You're talking about ideals. I'm talking about results." Or even, "That's your morality. Mine doesn't bend to guilt." Notice what happens. You're no longer asking for approval. You're declaring that their definition of good is irrelevant in your world. They argue over virtue. You decide outcomes. That's the Machiavellian edge. Immunity from moral shaming. Because the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who lies, cheats, or steals. It's the one who believes their morality makes them untouchable. You cannot out-reason them. You cannot out-debate them. They aren't seeking truth. They're chasing the spotlight of righteousness. So what's the play? Don't fight them. Freeze them. Let them rant. Let them fling accusations. Then calmly, almost with pity, drop a line that exposes them as zealots. Say, "You're very emotional about this," or, "It's just business, not a sermon." Suddenly, the crowd sees them as dramatic, you as composed. Righteousness without strategy collapses into noise. And when you strip the performance of its mystique, they deflate. Now, let's decode one of the oldest Machiavellian insights. He who wishes to deceive will always find someone willing to be deceived. And some of the most effective deceivers, the ones who dress manipulation in moral clothing, they don't say, "Do this because I want it." They say, "Do this because it's the right thing." Translation: "Do this because I've trapped you in an invisible contract you never signed." Learn to translate their words in real time. "A good person would" means "a submissive person would." don't you care? Means, let me weaponize your empathy. If you were truly loyal, you'd means, let me guilt you into surrender. The way you respond makes the difference between being owned and being sovereign. Never respond inside the moral frame. Respond to the tactic. Instead of saying, yes, I am loyal, say, loyalty doesn't mean blind obedience. Instead of defending your kindness, say, kindness without standards is just weakness in makeup. When you expose the trick, it loses power instantly. One of Machiavelli's coldest weapons is what I call strategic moral delay. Let the world believe you're guided by virtue until the moment it no longer serves you. Why? Because boundaries relax people. They stop watching. They make assumptions. They drop their guard. They believe you'll never betray, never lie, never retaliate. And when their vigilance dies, that's when your strike lands hardest. This doesn't mean betrayal as a sport. It means betrayal as precision. Timed, calculated, devastating. Turn the other cheek 3 times, then strike in the 4th moment, when they're most certain you won't. Stay silent through the storm, then claim credit after the dust settles. Offer forgiveness twice, then cut them off exactly when they expect a 3rd. Your reputation as the good one becomes camouflage. The longer you play saint, the harder your shadow hits when it finally emerges. And then there's guilt. The invisible leash. The tool people use when they fear your independence. They don't guilt you because you're wrong. They guilt you because you're free. They want you to hesitate, to shrink, to prioritize their comfort over your ambition. Machiavelli would teach you to slice that rope without apology. Ask yourself, did I break a real rule, or just someone else's illusion of me? If it's the latter, you owe nothing. They'll call you selfish. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. And you know what? Good. That means it's working. Because morality isn't meant to be a chain on your wrist. It's a dagger in your hand. You choose when to draw it, when to sheathe it, and when to walk away with it untouched. Here's the paradox. The masses confuse moral language with actual morality. They assume anyone speaking the right words must be virtuous. That's why Machiavelli insists, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few know what you are. The real battlefield isn't good versus evil. It's perception versus reality. You don't need to kill the concept of morality. You only need to master the costume. Wear morality like a crown when it strengthens your position. Remove it the second it becomes a weight. Your opponents will keep fighting for moral applause. You'll keep winning wars. So the question isn't whether you're a good person. The question is whether your morality serves you or enslaves you. And if you're ready to live by Machiavelli's code, you'll never again confuse obedience with virtue or guilt with guidance. Because the world doesn't reward who's right. It rewards who's untouchable. Are you ready to stop being predictable? Let's push even deeper into Machiavelli's darkest wisdom. Morality is theater, and you must be the star actor. Most people believe goodness is a crown you wear, proof of your worth. But in reality, it's a costume. The audience only sees what's projected under the lights. That's why the politician can smile as he guts your freedoms. Why the CEO can donate to charities while quietly suffocating competitors. Why the friend can speak loyalty while texting other options. They don't win because they are good. They win because they look like it. Here's the brutal truth. In the modern world, optics are currency. Headlines, impressions, sound bites, tweets. These dictate reputations more than any hidden reality. That's why Machiavelli said, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Appearance buys trust. Reality stays in the shadows until you decide to reveal it. So, How do you weaponize this? You perform morality without being chained by it. Outrage when someone else lies, even though you lie better. Praise fairness publicly, while tipping the scales behind closed doors. Comfort someone in pain, while cataloging the intelligence their weakness reveals. Call it hypocrisy if you want. Machiavelli calls it survival. The ruthless get exposed because they stop acting. They reveal their hunger. They drop the mask too early. The real masters, they never break character. They build hospitals while waging war. They talk about unity while splitting factions. They wear white robes while swinging blood-stained swords. That's how you stay in power for decades. You don't just win, you manage perception. And in today's world, this game is sharper than ever. You don't just need results, you need a narrative, a public story that dresses your poison in honey. Donate publicly while expanding your ambition privately. Admit a minor flaw to distract from your true vice. Defend the weak not out of compassion, but to recruit the crowd's blind loyalty. You've given your enemies nothing to attack because you've painted the mask so flawlessly. They feel safe. They feel righteous. And while they clap, you advance undetected. Here's the cruel irony. People care less about what is true and more about what feels right. Machiavelli understood that optics crush facts in the court of public opinion. So when you attack your rivals, don't argue their inefficiency. Frame them as unethical. People won't remember whether they failed. They'll remember that they betrayed the right thing. That's the high ground you must seize. The moral high ground isn't a burden, it's the perfect sniper's nest. Stand on it long enough and you can rain arrows while the crowd cheers your virtue. Position yourself as the one who tried to do the right thing, even if every move was strategic. Others fight to prove they're effective. You fight to look ethical and win while they're busy debating definitions. Now here's the move that separates amateurs from operators. Don't argue in moral terms. Decide the moral terms. Redefine the frame before anyone else can. When guilt is pushed on you, flip it. When shame is thrown, deflect it. Someone calls you cruel? Respond. Cruelty is doing nothing when it matters. Someone accuses you of dishonesty. Say, honesty without strategy is suicide. Don't defend your goodness. Question their definition of it. The moment you stop needing to be seen as good, you step into untouchability. Your enemies expect guilt to soften you, morality to bind you, compassion to distract you. But you treat each of those as switches, not shackles. That's when you become unpredictable, unreadable, dangerous. And Machiavelli leaves no ambiguity about the endgame. In the actions of men, and especially princes, the end justifies the means. Not approval, not appearances. The result. While others bleed themselves dry, keeping their hands spotless, you wear gloves, smile, and leave every battlefield holding exactly what you came for. But this raises a harder question. What happens when someone tries to morally shame you in front of others? When the mob turns its spotlight on you? When your name is dragged, not for failure, but for being wrong? This is where you need the next layer of Machiavellian defense, flipping guilt into dominance. The crowd doesn't care who's right. They care who looks righteous. And your job isn't to convince, it's to redirect. Instead of explaining, you reveal the theatrics. You make the accuser look like a zealot, emotional, dramatic. Suddenly, their moral superiority becomes a punchline. That's how you walk away clean. Not because you defended yourself, but because you made their morality look performative. From this moment on, understand. Guilt is not a chain unless you hold it. Morality is not a burden unless you wear it. Both can be discarded the second they stop serving you. And when you do that, you gain the most dangerous freedom of all, the power to choose when to be saint and when to be shadow. Now let's look at how to sharpen that edge further, how to build a code of ethical power, not based on obedience, but on control. You've seen how morality gets twisted into a trap. Now let's move into the Machiavellian solution. Building your own code of ethical power. This isn't about abandoning morals. It's about controlling them, switching them on and off like a blade, not carrying them like chains. The truth is, most people lose because their morality is static. It never bends, never adapts, never questions itself. They announce rules like a billboard. I could never lie, I always forgive, I refuse to betray. Sounds noble. But to Machiavelli, it's suicide. The moment your enemies know these absolutes, they know your limits. And once your limits are mapped, you're no longer respected, you're exploited. But imagine the opposite. Imagine if your morality was flexible. Imagine being able to choose when to forgive, when to deceive, when to protect, and when to strike. That's not hypocrisy. That's sovereignty. That's freedom. Your morality stops owning you and starts serving you. If your values don't protect your survival, strengthen your influence, or push your goals forward, they're not values, they're obstacles. The most dangerous people aren't the heartless. They're the ones who can turn their morality on and off depending on the battlefield. They can be kind without being trapped by kindness. They can be cruel without being defined by cruelty. That's the Machiavellian balance. Cruelty without restraint is barbarism. But kindness without control, that's pathetic. Real power is when people know you could crush them, but you don't. That's when your kindness feels rare, valuable, earned. And that's when your enemies respect it. If they sense you have no sharp edge, your goodness becomes a joke. But if they know you can be ruthless, your mercy feels like a gift. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must not mind incurring the charge of cruelty when it is necessary for keeping his subjects united and faithful." The key word? Necessary. That's the distinction. You don't indulge cruelty, you deploy it. And when the necessity passes, you sheathe it again. This is where situational ethics come in. The ability to customize your values to match the moment. Too many people try to apply one rigid code to every scenario. But Machiavelli believed in flexibility, not rigidity. If honesty will strengthen your position, tell the truth. If deception will prevent collapse, lie. If kindness will buy loyalty, show kindness. If fear will secure obedience, lean on fear. Stop asking, "Is this right or wrong?" Start asking, "Will this move bring me closer to control or further away?" That's the Machiavellian compass. Not north versus south, but gain versus loss. And here's a crucial insight. Love without power is useless. People may adore you, but without leverage, that love evaporates at the first sign of struggle. Machiavelli didn't despise love. He understood its fragility. Love without fear is fragile, but love that follows power, that survives respect, awe, and even fear, that's immortal. That's why he wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one of the two must be lacking." Notice, though, he didn't say abandon love. He said prioritize fear if you must choose. Because in the long game, the goal isn't to be hated or adored. It's to be both feared and loved. First, dominate. Then inspire. First, secure control. Then, when you reveal rare flashes of virtue, they become legendary. Think of the arc like this. Early game. Prioritize fear, control, unpredictability. Mid-game. Earn selective trust where it strengthens your advantage. Endgame. Practice rare, deliberate virtue to build a reputation greater than any moralist could dream of. That's the strategy. Build untouchable control first. Then layer virtue on top as a finishing touch, not as a foundation. Because the world doesn't remember martyrs. It remembers monarchs. At the peak, you are the law. There is no universal code. There is no external compass. The only question that matters is, did it work? Did it secure survival, influence, and legacy? If yes, then your morality served its purpose. History doesn't write songs about the righteous. It writes about the ruthless who played righteous better than anyone else. That's the lesson Machiavelli wanted burned into your bones. You weren't born to be someone's example of purity. You were born to rule the game. So let others cling to their absolutes. Let them die by their chains. You'll write your own code, define your own virtues, choose your own balance between cruelty and compassion. And when the dust settles, no one will ask if you were moral. They'll ask only one thing. Did you win? Now, let's close this with Machiavelli's ultimate endgame. How to use morality not as a leash, not even just as camouflage, but as the crown that outlives your body. We've arrived at the final layer of Machiavelli's truth. Morality is not an end in itself. It's a tool to craft power, shape legacy, and outlast your enemies. Think of history's great rulers. They weren't remembered because they followed a universal code. They're remembered because they wrote their own. They decided when to appear merciful, when to appear cruel, when to lie, and when to inspire. And because they mastered that balance, their names echo centuries later while the good but powerless faded without a trace. Here's what Machiavelli wanted you to understand. There is no fixed compass, no universal law of right. The only real test is this. Did your actions bring you closer to survival, control, and legacy? If yes, then morality served you. If no, then morality enslaved you. This is the Machiavellian code of ethical power. Your morality is a switchblade. You decide when it's drawn, when it's hidden, and when it's put away. It should never be automatic. It should never be predictable. The world rewards those who use their ethics like weapons, not those who wear them like chains. So customize your morality. Be fair, but only when fairness doesn't cost you leverage. Be generous, but only when generosity multiplies loyalty. Be merciful, but only when your enemies are already on their knees. Kindness, honesty, loyalty. These are not universal commands. They are situational strategies. Use them where they strengthen you. Withhold them where they weaken you. This is why Machiavelli emphasized situational ethics. One rigid rule applied to every scenario makes you fragile. Adaptability makes you powerful. If truth builds your reputation, speak it. If deception prevents disaster, use it. If compassion secures followers, show it. If fear guarantees obedience, wield it. Your new guiding question isn't, is this the right thing to do? It's, will this move increase or decrease my control? The world doesn't reward righteousness. It rewards results. And results are what history remembers. Here's where the paradox sharpens. To be loved without power is meaningless. It's temporary, conditional, fragile. But to be loved after power, that's immortality. People love strength cloaked in virtue, not virtue begging for strength. That's why Machiavelli said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one of the two must be lacking." Because fear builds the foundation, and love, carefully cultivated, crowns it. This is the long game. At first, cultivate fear, unpredictability, and control. Then, selectively dispense virtue to deepen loyalty. Finally, in the endgame, let rare acts of goodness amplify your legend. When you live this way, your morality becomes not a leash, but a legend. People will tell stories about your fairness, your mercy, your integrity, because you gave it sparingly, strategically, and with undeniable power behind it. That's the highest Machiavellian truth. You are the law. You are the compass. You decide where cruelty ends and compassion begins, and while the world may call that evil, Machiavelli would call it enlightenment. Because at the summit of power, there is no external judge, no universal tribunal. There is only this. Did you last? Did you dominate? Did you leave behind influence so commanding that it echoes beyond your life? If the answer is yes, then your morality worked. If not, then morality worked against you. And here's the final whisper Machiavelli would leave you with. History does not remember the righteous. It remembers the ruthless who played righteous better than anyone else. You were not born to be someone's martyr. You were born to be someone's monarch. Let them keep their purity. You'll take the throne.